Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? You should check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Pictorum Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. Instead of a boring old tie, get him a historic baseball photo taken by Henry High Sandom at the historic Polo Grounds Stadium in New York City during the 1894 Temple Cup. Or, if he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL poster. These are so good looking that you'll be amazed how they turn out. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hi folks, welcome again to another edition of the Pigskin Past. I'm your host, Joe Zagorski, and tonight we're going to have our second edition of one NFL team that almost made a world championship dream come true. In 1977, it was called BRONCOMANIA. It was a fervorous and inspiring uprising among seemingly all of the people in the state of Colorado, and in particular in the city of Denver. It was a year that will never be forgotten in the environs of the Rocky Mountains. It was 1977, and it was the first year that the Denver Broncos ever made the NFL playoffs. So what, you might say? Well, the Broncos did not just go to the playoffs in 1977, rather, they went all the way to the Super Bowl. And it's a rarity for any team throughout NFL history to have never, ever gone to the playoffs and then in 1 year end up in the Super Bowl. But there was more to the 77 Broncos than just that. Their head coach, Red Miller, was a rookie head coach. He served his time as an assistant in New England, and now he was going to lead a bunch of players that most people never heard of into Super Bowl 12. We only had one player that people did know, quarterback Craig Morton. Most people thought that Morton was too old and too physically damaged to play anymore in the NFL. But Miller thought differently, and as it turned out, Morton's veteran leadership was just what the youthful Denver team, Denver office in particular, needed to become competitive in the tough American Football Conference. Now the Denver defense, however, they were already competitive. They employed a 3-4 defense with a good/excellent front seven, and a pretty darn good defensive secondary to boot. They took the moniker of the Orange Crush defense, and it was certainly appropriate. They just crushed their opponents one after another. They limited the Buffalo Bills to just 63 passing yards and 66 rushing yards. They held the Kansas City Chiefs to just 80 passing yards and 86 rushing yards. Then got better. The defending world champion Oakland Raiders could only earn a meager total of 70 passing yards against the Broncos in their first meeting of the year. And the always tough Pittsburgh Steelers could gain only 97 passing yards against the Orange Crush defense. That, my friends, is domination, courtesy of one of the best defenses in the league during the 1970s. Well, with a defense like Denver's, victories started coming in bunches. They won their first 6 games of the 77 season, including a statement-making 30-7 beatdown of the division rivals, the Oakland Raiders. Now, the Orange Crush defense claimed an incredible total of 7 interceptions in that unexpected rout. And then things got better for them as the season wore on. By the time that Denver defeated the defending AFC East champion Baltimore Colts, they were definitely on a roll. They finished the regular season that year tied for the best record in the NFL at 12-2. Denver secured their first home field advantage in their history throughout the 1977 playoffs, and as it turned out, that advantage turned out to be quite profitable. Their very first playoff game was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a dominant team that was just 2 years removed from being world champions. But on Christmas Eve, 1977, they had to contend with the forceful Broncos. The game was competitive until the fourth quarter, when Denver surged for 13 points en route to a 34-21 victory. As their beloved Broncos left the field during that game, or after that game, their fans serenaded them with a brand new song called I'm Dreaming of an Orange Crushmas. Not Christmas, Crushmas. Okay? Now, on New Year's Day, a week later, 1978, the Broncos played against their bitter division rivals, the Oakland Raiders, at Mile High Stadium in freezing temperatures, very sunny outside that day, in the very first AFC Championship game that the Broncos ever played in. And they beat the Raiders by a score of 20-17. It would be the greatest day in Denver Broncos history, at least before Super Bowl 32. Broncos wide receiver Haven Moses caught 2 touchdown passes in that game to lead his team to the NFL's promised land, the Super Bowl. Unfortunately for the young and inspirational Cinderella Denver Broncos, the Dallas Cowboys proved to be the better team in Super Bowl 12 by the score of 27-10. Despite the loss, the Broncos awakened an entire state and perhaps an entire region of the nation, all in the space of 1 year's time. The 1977 Denver Broncos were certainly an unexpected but important team in the annals of the pro football game. They proved once again that a team can come from nowhere, and I mean nowhere, in 1 year to make it to one step from the summit of the game. Thanks again for listening to this edition of the Pigskin Past. This is Joe Zagorski, and I look forward to talking to you about another great team in the next edition of the Pigskin Past.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
We here at the Sports History Network proudly partner with 26 podcasts, all revolving around the history of sports. But did you know that many of our hosts were sports history authors way before they started their shows? It's true. We've got Joe Ziemba, host of When Football Was Football, Joe Zagorski, host of Pro Football in the 1970s, Mark Morthier, host of Yesterday Sports, Tommy Phillips, host of Lombardi Memories, and Scott Adamson, co-host of From the 55-Yard Line. All these authors have many books for you to choose from. To check them out, go to our website at sportshistorynetwork.com/sportshistorybooks. Pick up your copy today. Soundtrack provided by Kevin MacLeod of filmmusic.io.